Okay, so thank you to everybody for joining us. This is the What is Financial Planning panel discussion. I know that there are people who are still in the process of joining, so I will continue to admit people from the waiting room as they come in. But we're going to go and get started in the interest of time, just to make sure that we give the full amount of time to the topic that I think y'all will want to hear. What we're going to do is I'm going to go through some introductions. I will give an agenda for what we're going to cover, which is a brief amount of background material. And then we're going to get into our panel discussion where our panelists will help give their clarifications or guidance or any background material they want to bring up in regards to questions. So what is financial planning panel discussion? Thank you for joining us. Just a quick note that this is a free educational seminar. It's co-sponsored by LISC and by Financial Planning Association, both of Houston. And so this is there's no specific guidance that's going to be given as part of this. It's not meant to be individualized recommendations or discussion of individual situations as much as it is more of a general background on financial planning, but also broadly how it can be applicable to maybe you as an audience member or you as someone in the community. So just know that our intent is not to talk about specific situations, but we have a forum and we have a method for talking about that. That's what we'll talk about at the end. Okay, so in case for those of you who are wondering who I am, my name is Marco Rimasa. I am with the Financial Planning Association of Houston. I'm the pro bono director on our board of directors. I will serve as a moderator for the financial planning piece of this discussion. And then on top of that, Ellery, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I know most of you on here. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Ellery Maku. I'm a program officer with LISC Houston and looking forward to the discussion.
Okay. And then for panelists, we have Freddie Garza, who is with us, partner and director of wealth planning with Endeavor Advisors. And then we have Steve O'Nia, who is president, chartered financial consultant, OM Investments. He's the one with the really cool background. It's got to be a CFP. Awesome. We also have Zing Zhu, but she is, I don't see her on right now. So if she's able to join us, then I'll loop her into the discussions as she is able to. But for right now, Freddie and Steve, thank you very much for your time and for your expertise and guidance on this. Quick background before we get into the panel discussion. Our agenda briefly is we're going to talk about, Ellery's going to kick us off starting to talk about the FOCs. I'm going to give some basic background on what is financial planning and some of the areas that financial planning tends to address or broadly addresses. And then we're going to get into this panel Q&A session. We have some questions that we'll tee up that I think will be of interest to you as the audience. But if you have additional stuff, please feel free to put it in the chat and we'll see what we can work into the discussion. I know that this will be, it'll be helpful just from a broad discussion perspective, but if there's any particular direction that y'all think you would be interested in hearing more about, we can see what's workable from the panelist perspective. Okay, so Ellery, you want to kick us off?
All right, I get to start. Again, I'm Ellery Maku. I'm with LISC Houston. Thank you all. I'd also like to acknowledge that I see Jordan Tobias from the Foundation for Financial Planning. Jordan, thanks for hopping on. I appreciate it. So our program is funded through the Foundation for Financial Planning and administered in conjunction with our financial opportunity centers. Most of you are employees of said financial opportunity centers, so I don't think I need to go into detail about what our FOCs do. We are a strong network here in Houston. We offer the LISC three services in coaching: financial coaching, employment coaching, and income supports. So the process, as it works through the FOCs, is the FOCs work with the client to determine if they have some longer term goals or want to start looking ahead a little more than an FOC coach is able to do. And then the FOC coach connects with LISC, who then connects with a volunteer, a pro bono certified financial planner that can work one-on-one with the client to help determine how they can benefit from the session. I see Jordan turned her camera on. Did you want to say anything, or are you good?
I'm good. I'm good.
All right. Nice to see you. So the FOCs are really the core of this program. And we are really excited about the benefit that our low to moderate income, our clients that don't always have the opportunity to connect with or be served by a certified financial planner can get from this program, the benefits. Marco, back to you.
Okay. So in light of that, let me give some background information just for those who are not as familiar with the process of what we, myself, Freddie, Steve, we're obviously we're coming from the industry, financial planning. So what we wanted to cover for starters is just some groundwork. What is financial planning just in general? And then we'll come back to this because a lot of the questions that I think might be of interest to you will be understanding exactly how this works. But at a high level, at a very broad level, financial planning is a process of gathering information from the clients. Financial or relevant information doesn't always have to be financial. It can be just relevant details that pertain to the particular situation. Client's age, the person's age that we're working with, family situation, other things that may be relevant to the planning process. Determining goals and assessing where you are in relation to those goals is also part of financial planning. Creating a plan. Again, this can have many different iterations, and we could talk a little bit about how that plays out as we go through this. And then executing a plan and monitoring progress against that. So very broad, high-level description. We'll talk more specifically about some of these elements here in this panel discussion. The ultimate goal of financial planning is really to help people establish control over their financial journey, provide a roadmap, provide peace of mind. It's not always easy. It's not always easy to hear as much as it's not always easy to give feedback, but it's really meant to put whoever is approaching this process in the driver's seat in terms of their financial journey. So that's really the goal. It's a support role. Our role as financial planners is to support the folks that we're working with to enable their success, whatever that success looks like to them. Okay, so areas that financial planning tends to cover. First, just broad catch-all category, general financial planning. But I know that this also really will play into this discussion today because this area includes budgeting, it includes strategies, it includes debt management. So really what I kind of refer to a lot of times as the building blocks or the foundation before you get into any other type of financial planning. A lot of times you're starting at this area. Education planning, so anything around funding for school, college, trade school, whatever. Risk management and insurance planning. So even though many financial planners don't necessarily sell insurance directly, some do, or some work with insurance companies. But if nothing else, we cover it from a planning perspective in terms of looking at insurance and other risk management areas. Investment planning, of course, this is the area that you might think of whenever you first think of a financial planner or a certified financial planner, is that all they do is investment planning. It is a part of what we do, and it's a big part, but it's one of these items. Tax planning. So we're not CPAs necessarily. We don't necessarily do or create tax returns, but what we do is look at how taxes impact the financial journey that clients are on, and how we might be able to restructure that if there's a way to approach taxes differently. Retirement savings and income planning. So this is kind of the opposite side of the coin to what the accumulation stage. Many people focus on how do you build from all the way up to whatever level you're trying to get to in order to retire. And then there's a whole segment of life after retirement. That's where retirement savings and income planning comes in. And then estate planning, which tends to focus on what happens to assets after somebody passes away, or what do you want to do ahead of time in order to think about the next generation or whatever is important to you. Doesn't always have to be something where it's family. It can also be charities or other areas that you may want to benefit down the road. Okay, so with that in mind, and I'll come back to this, and maybe I'll just leave this up as to what is financial planning. But I want to start off with the panel discussion because I really want you all as the audience to hear from Freddie, from Steve, from actual practitioners who are doing this work in the field, and who may be sitting on the opposite side of the table as far as this program is concerned. So in terms of getting us started from a panel perspective, Freddie and Steve, I wanted to throw this to you. How do given the audience that we're looking at, how do financial planners tend to work with people who are either starting off in their career or just starting this type of interest in financial planning for some reason? Maybe they've started a new job and now all of a sudden they have access to benefits that they didn't have before. How do financial planners tend to work with people who are just starting out?
I'll take a stab at it. Well, thanks for having me, Freddie Garza. So really, for me, financial planning and what, the value that I can provide to anyone really is financial organization, getting organized financially. A lot of people everyone is so busy. Everyone has a lot of things going on in their lives. And, it takes effort to just sit down, concentrate, think about what are the factors that are affecting, what does your situation look like, and and discussing what that looks like and how to proceed. So for me, simplifying complex questions is really what I try to do with people that approach me, regular people, even my friends and my family. I mean, I'm answering questions all the time from my siblings and my parents and my neighbors and everyone, that there's just common things that affect everyone financially. And if you're not talking about them, if you're not used to knowing about the details, then people tend to get overwhelmed with these concepts because we don't get taught these things really in school. For most schools, there's not really a financial education component. I think really there should be, but there's not. I think there's some changes hopefully coming down that won't be the case forever. But for me, when I look at this slide, Marco, steps 1, 2, and 3 are very, very important just to be able to understand what someone's situation is like currently, a snapshot, take a snapshot of where they are today, finding out what they want to do in the future. And then just then, once you get a good handle on all that, then start to figuring out, okay, what are the different levers we can pull to get them there? Or what are the top 3 priorities we're going to focus on? Because what I found is sometimes some clients want to go straight to number 4 or number 5, and they want to get to the answer quickly. Honestly, the service that we provide is an iterative process. It's nothing you can accomplish really in an hour. If we have a 1-hour meeting with a client, we'll be lucky to get a very good indication of where they are today, a snapshot, and then we can build from that. So, my role is to encourage and not to discourage. So it's a fine line that we have to work with the clients that we work that want to learn, that want to better themselves. But it all starts with financial organization and trying to understand where the client is today.
Steve, any thoughts to add?
Yeah. Thank you, Marco. Thank you, everyone, for having me. My name is Steve O'Nia, financial advisor. So it kind of goes on with what Freddie was saying. It really is about the organization, and I'll touch on that a little bit. And from my perspective, financial planning for me and for people when we're just getting started, is really going to start with the financial advisor getting to know you, as well as you getting to know the financial advisor. We're going to build that relationship. We're going to make sure that we're on the same wavelength, that we understand, what's your situation? What are your needs? What are your goals? What are your values? What are your current resources? What are your current limitations? For example, if you have from no money sitting in a savings account to thousands of dollars, or hundreds of dollars in a savings account, that's going to be important for us to know, because these little tidbits are gonna help us start figuring out where we are and where we need to be. For example, typically, I guess we're gonna start sharing some nuggets of wisdom in this panel discussion. So typically, the best thing that you should do, and this is generally speaking, everybody's situation is different, but typically it's best to have 3 to 6 months of savings, of living expenses. So in case something were to happen, an emergency, a job loss, or anything like that, we want to make sure that you have that money ready and liquid and able for you to be able to pull out. So just asking you a simple question as far as, how much do we have right now in savings, or how much do we have that is readily accessible? That's going to be important for us to be able to make sure that if an emergency situation comes, you're going to be ready to be able to handle that. It goes along with knowing what kind of insurance you have, whether you have, health insurance, or whether you have life insurance. All these different aspects, because as Freddie was saying, it's like a puzzle. We have to make sure we're organized. We have to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row, all our T's crossed, and all our I's dotted. So when the situation comes, you'll be prepared, as well as your goals. If you're saying your goal is, I want to be able to retire at 65, or I want to be able to buy a new house in 5 years, or I want to be able to have 6 months worth of savings. Let's start from the basics. Some of us may not even be there, which is a very common challenge right now in the United States. Well, then that's going to give us the opportunity to figure out, okay, so this is where we are. Now let's figure out how we're going to be able to start figuring out what expenses, and that's why we need to know your expenses, that we should be able to cut, what's discretionary, what's needed. Like, if you're going to tell me, hey, that, I got to get my hair taken care of, like that's necessary. Okay. I mean, whatever your values are, that's important to you, but if there's something else that you can pull back, like maybe the subscription to Netflix, or maybe you can pull back a little bit of money on the hair or clothes or anything like that, then we can do that. And that's why it's important for us to understand where your current situation is, what's important, your values, what can we take away. And then from there, we can be able to start saving the money and get to the goal in a methodical way, in a measured way, to make sure that we get there strategically to whatever your goal is. So big goals, small goals, you name it. But at the end of the day, it's really about getting to know each other, understanding your goals, your values, your beliefs, and making sure that we create a process that you're comfortable with, so we can get you organized and make sure that the money that you have saved is going to be purposeful. And so I'll stop right there.
Thank you both. Just reiterating that our FOCs, it's very important, as we all know, to gather information, make budgets, and update those budgets, as well as check credit scores. So that's where the, as Freddie mentioned, gathering information, having everything in one place. So a lot of this background work is done through the coaching and the relationship that the public has, our clients have with their FOC coaches. And so gathering that information, determining maybe goals that are intermediate to longer term, based on everything, all the work that you've been doing with the coaches, is really where we rely on the expertise of our CFPs.
Yeah, so I'll just add one thing going on what Steve kind of ended on with the process and being methodical about it. Really, my expertise is I don't get really, I'm good at working with numbers and analytics. And I know a lot of financial planners are. We do it every day. It's, you have to be able to do that. So the clients that I've worked with through the FOCs, when I start interviewing them, they know their numbers. They've already had that the pre sort of stability check, and they when I start asking them questions about, hey, what are you paying for your rent, and what are your expenses like, and the income side too, they know their numbers. But the issue is that none of it's really documented formally. In order to start working towards our way to number 4, eventually to creating a plan, we're going to have to put some pen to paper in old school ways, or maybe even a spreadsheet, which is what I normally do on the computer. We got to start documenting these things so that we know what the moving pieces are, so that we can start running some calculations. When people start giving me numbers, I'm already running in my head, like, what is that going to look like? What is that telling me? So we're going to start with the income. We're going to start talking about what the income is. If someone's making $3,000 a month take home, we know there's taxes going to be taken out. If that's the top line, okay, then let's start talking about what are the expenses. Rent or home, auto expenses, debt expenses, food, shelter, entertainment, travel, car, gas, all of that. We got to quantify. So as an example, if someone tells me that they're making $3,000 a month, but when I add up all their expenses, I'm up to over $3,000 a month, what does that immediately signal to me? We don't have enough. We're even on a monthly basis to live, right? We need to change some things, or we need to reprioritize. In that same scenario, what if I add up all the expenses and it only adds up to $2,000 a month? What does that tell me? Good, we have a surplus. Now we can actually start maybe doing some stuff with that surplus, making sure that we're using that excess wisely, whether it's paying down debt, adding to savings, saving for a goal, the nearest term goal that they have. But I need to be able to do that to know, okay, can we even, what problem do we need to address first, or what issue can we start addressing first? But I do that for clients all the time. Is we got to start there. We got to put pen to paper to start getting financially organized. So that's part of the process.
Okay, so Freddie and Steve both talked about Freddie, I know you talked about how some people may want to jump right ahead to number 4, creating a plan. They already have an idea of what they want to do, and they want to go just 100% against that. And Steve, you talked about kind of some ideas that people might either want to start with, or things to keep in mind as they're going. But I want to kind of turn it to the other side of the coin and ask you both, because we know that for everybody who may already have a plan in place, or have an idea of what it is they want to do, there's plenty of people out there who don't know where to start and haven't started yet because they either feel overwhelmed, or they feel like they don't have enough information, or they don't even have enough themselves from an asset perspective to even worry about. So they just don't even start. I just saw something this morning that basically 50% of American households don't have any type of retirement savings or any type of emergency savings. So clearly there's a lot of people out there who haven't started for one reason or another. What do y'all see, Freddie and Steve? What do you see as common derailers, or things that cause people to not want to start this process?
Yeah, so I think number one, like what Ellery was saying, you definitely don't be afraid to talk to your financial center. Don't be afraid to talk to a financial coach, where they can really give you some clear information on how to get started, some simple steps. Now, I do know, as far as challenges go, why some people are maybe afraid to get started is sometimes they feel like it's just too overwhelming. Like if there's debt and you just feel like you don't know how to tackle it, or you feel like, it's kind of like the gym. A lot of us, we want to, and that's just American, statistics. You're like, oh yeah, I want to go to the gym and I want to, do all this, but it takes work. And it starts with, just being willing to be able to start with step one. Rome wasn't built in a day, right? Don't be afraid to get help. Don't be afraid to talk to the financial centers. Don't be afraid to talk to LISC, to be able to start figuring out how can we get there step by step. So if you feel it's overwhelming, you're not alone. There's plenty of people that feel that it's overwhelming, but it really just starts with, okay, like Freddie was saying, like it starts with getting organized. And you can do that with LISC, or you can do that with a financial coach, just figuring out, okay, where are my expenses? You know, where are they going? Where's my, like, how much is my income? How much is coming in a month? And then from there, like, once you start getting organized, it's much more easier to manage. And that's what that's what it's really all about. It's really about understanding, okay, this is where I am. These are my resources. Now I need to start, and this is my goal. You know, if I want to be able to, for example, if I want to be able to lose 20 pounds, I need to make sure that I'm, you know, exercising, you know, every day or every other day, that I'm, you know, you have to create the plan, and you have to do the steps in the plan, and you have plenty of resources that you can do, with LISC, or even some simple searches, or just talk to a CFP, financial coach. There's definitely a lot of ways you can go about it.
For me, Marco, what I've seen sometimes is people try to do too much too fast. I mean, you know, we try to tackle too many things, juggle too many goals at one time. We got to, I think it's better to prioritize, to identify the top 2 to 3, you know, most important near-term attainable goals that we could do, and concentrate on those. One of the thoughts that I had going through my head was just to mention, you know, I've worked with you know, probably hundreds of people, you know, over my 15-year career. We've seen a lot of different scenarios, you know, from really good scenarios to really poor scenarios. You know, our job is not to, you know, we don't judge. You know, we don't judge. Everything that happens in a meeting, in a one-on-one meeting, is confidential, and we're not there to question or to give our opinion on, like, what, you know, what type of priorities should be important for that person, for the client. They tell us, and we, you know, start formulating a plan. Now, I may hear something sometimes that, you know, I know are not a good idea or plan. It is then my job to sort of educate and to inform, hey, did you know that this is causing this? Or did you know that by doing this, you can, you know, save $100 or $200 a month? That really starts to adding up. Or did you know that we're missing out on this potential opportunity, you know, saving or tax or whatever it is? You know, even I'll just give you guys an example just to be vulnerable here a little bit. You know, a couple years ago, my dad unexpectedly, for health reasons, had to stop working. And, you know, it's a little bit weird feels a little bit weird for, you know, the child to be giving financial advice to the parents. But I told them, I said, hey, if you guys are willing to let me look at your stuff, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, just like I do with a client. And if you are transparent and you will let me do that for you, I can make sure that we put you guys in the best position going forward for, you know, what the new reality is going to look like, you know, reduced income, things like that. So, you know, I took an inventory of everything that they had. And, you know, I said, hey, you have to tell me, you know, I'm not judging. You just got to tell me. So I know all the inflows, all the outflows, where they are, what the debt looks like. Turns out we had multiple vehicles that had debt on them, but they didn't need multiple vehicles. So they didn't know that they could sell a vehicle, not turn it back to the dealership because the payment was high, but they actually had equity in the car. They could actually sell it, get rid of a payment, and they would get a check back. They didn't really know that. And I was surprised that they didn't know that. So, you know, it took maybe a couple of months to get them reoriented and just get them, you know, on a solid footing. But, you know, eventually we got to the place where we paid off all the little pesky debts that probably, you know, they didn't need to have, the store cards, etc. And started some savings, and then give them a little bit of confidence that they're going to be okay. People sometimes just lack the confidence. They're afraid of the unknown. And trust me, once you get a hold of the information and once you sort of understand the situation, that is a much less scary thing to face. But people are scared of what they don't know. But once you sort of see it, it is what it is, you can actually make a plan to attack it or to improve it. So that's kind of what I've seen.
So I guess kind of following on that, so we know that, you know, if people are afraid to get started, maybe it's because they have a number of different things that they're you know, Steve alluded to this earlier, like they have a lot of things that they may be trying to juggle. They don't know where to get started. We all know that every one of us has multiple different priorities, and so when we come into these meetings, if a client approaches a financial planner or you want to work with a financial planner, you bring a lot of stuff to the table in terms of things that you want to do. I mean, how do financial planners go about prioritizing among different goals? How do they help bring that organization to clients?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to what Freddie says. It really depends on what's the client's priorities. And one way for us to be able to figure that out is, okay, so one, that we definitely want to know what your goals are. And also importantly, we want to know what your values are. Some people value, different goals differently. And because of that, those goals are going to be more prioritized. For example, one couple or one family may prioritize right now. It's about, I want to be able to save enough money so I can be able to pass it down to the next generation. I want to have something left over for, because I want to make sure that my kids, have a legacy or something that can help them, give them a leg up. And that's totally fine. That's totally understandable. And the approach to that, of course, would be, making sure that we have enough money that's saved up so we can be able to, periodically, methodically, to make sure that we can be able to have that taken care of. And it's one step at a time. If it's looking at your expenses and cutting things, or just saving a little bit more every time you get a paycheck, some people might save, 2%. Some people might save 10%. It really depends, but it's step by step. And that can get us to that goal. Now, on the flip side, there are some people that say, you know what? I worked hard for my money and I don't want to spoil my kids. I want to save this money up, and at the same time, I want to be able to also use it and have fun with life. Later on in life, if I want to travel, as Freddie mentioned, or if I want to, do something that's, within my budget, within my means. Okay, well, if that's your priority, I respect that. We respect that as a financial advisor. As Freddie said, we're not here to judge. If that's your value, you grew up, building yourself up, and you're opposed to that, then it's totally understandable. So we would make sure that make sure that we're doing the proper things to save that money up, that we're managing expenses, and at the same time, making sure that when you do spend that money to be able to do the things you want to do and enjoy life, that you still have enough left over all the way to the end of your life. And that's all, since we're talking about statistics and research, there's plenty of Americans that underestimate how long they will live. I know that this world can, get crazy, with the things that we saw in 2020, COVID, and with heart disease and all these things like that. But, and I'm going to do a call out really quickly, and I'll pass it back up to Freddie in particular. So number one, we definitely underestimate how long we live. We can definitely live to our 80s on average, or there's a high likelihood, especially if you start off, especially if you can make it to 65. Like if you can make it to the higher age, that your probabilities are going up, that you can extend longer. And that's going to be even more important for women. As many of us maybe know, women live longer than men on average. Everyone's different, but typically speaking. So it's definitely a very big priority to make sure that women, and that's a market that I focus on, or that I'm passionate about, as far as people that although we're making sure we're taking care of people and we're helping others, we also want to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and we're saving enough to make sure that it's going to last. Now, like I said in the beginning, when there's emergency expenses, when that pop up, but also when you may need that down the road. So again, just kind of summarizing here, Marco, to your question, it's really about, what are your goals? What are your values? And then it's about figuring out, okay, let's utilize the resources that you have, as well as the knowledge and expertise that a financial coach would have, to be able to make sure that we create a plan that's on paper, like Freddie mentioned, that's efficient, effective, methodical, and evidence-based to get you to your goal. We're not just wishing here. We want to create like that plan is based on science, based on stats that are probably going to get you to where you need to be.
This a goal without a plan is just a wish is supremely appropriate for this discussion. So Marco, again, thank you for including that on the slide. I have a brief question. which is if somebody doesn't even know where to start. Steve, you mentioned retirement or other goals that somebody might have. If they don't even know what a retirement plan is, or how to access it, or what the possibilities are for investment or for savings, and they're coming to you just a completely blank slate. Is there a way that they can feel comfortable in asking questions, or asking you to start from the very beginning, explaining what different investments can do for them and help them with, so that they're not as afraid of the unknown, as you said?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is really going to fall on that financial coach or that advisor, if you will. It's really, and I'm a firm, I love communication. I study communication at the University of Houston as a bachelor's degree. And really it comes down to, number one, we got to create an environment where the person could come in and ask questions, like, like this is a learning environment. There's no dumb questions or anything like that. And the financial coach needs to make sure that they're communicating in a simple way and not trying to use jargon or terms, industry terms, and all these fancy words. Like, we need to break it down. And don't be afraid to ask, what does this mean? Or what does that mean? And that coach should not be, as Freddie mentioned, judgmental or snarky or sarcastic. If they do anything like that, or you get that kind of vibe, then that is not an appropriate environment, and the kind of environment that many financial advisors want to give as far as an impression goes. We want to make sure, and like I said in the beginning, this is about you getting to know the financial coach, and the financial coach getting to know you. And part of that is knowing how we should be communicating. Should we communicate things on basic levels, and using metaphors? We can use analogies, if we will, like I said, about exercise, one day at a time, exercising at home, or going to the gym, or just eating healthy foods, similar to, looking at our expenses and, making sure that we're cutting costs and saving where we can. Or if we can make it really technical and talk about retirement plans and talk about the 401ks and the IRAs and all that, we can get it as complex and as simple as you want to be. But at the end of the day, this is for the clients, or the person that's talking to us best interest, and we need to make sure that it's communicated in a simple way and clearly.
The reality is, I think I mentioned this before, is that the relationship that that you're going to build or embark upon, or the process, is a multi-layered. It's going to take time. It's not generally anything that we're going to accomplish the first visit. So you have to kind of, like, we have to set the stage, set proper expectations that this is going to be a process that we're going to be handling over, a couple of different meetings. There's probably going to be some homework to take home from the client side, to probably gather more information, or maybe to answer the clarifying questions that maybe they don't know on the spot. And that's perfectly fine. I do that every day. I always provide my clients with follow-ups and action items, and then it's their responsibility. It's going to be their responsibility to gather that information in whatever method they can, whether it's logging into an online account, or pulling statements, or making sure they bring that bill in, or whatever. But there's going to need to be some ownership taking on. The financial advisor is not going to be able to do all the work. We can give our guidance, expertise, and I'm certainly in it to do a bunch of work from the analytical side, but from the information side, the client needs to provide that. And if there's actions to be made, the client has to follow through. I mean, the client going to have to follow through. They're going to have to decide for themselves whether to take the recommendations or not. And, there's an understanding there should be, that oftentimes what we're doing is, in improving financial situation, is a trade-off. What we're doing is we're trading off short-term satisfaction, spending, enjoyment, to build something, to grow something, which you don't see the benefit till many years down the line. It's sometimes difficult for people to comprehend if they're, thinking, hey, what's affecting me today, or next week, or this month. Thinking in years is difficult for a lot of people. But we do have the ability to show some graphs, to show some forecasts, and we'll explain what that is. That is going to be dependent on a bunch of variables and assumptions. So we got to be clear about what all those are. But when it boils down to it, there's a lot of times a trade-off between a short-term gratification versus building something for the long term. And that's sometimes you have to, people are going to have to sign up for it. You have to be willing to sign up for that type of trade-off.
I agree, and I just want to say really quickly 3 things. Number one, don't be afraid to talk to the financial center. I know they have a lot of great resources, so don't be afraid to talk to a coach if you want to get basic information. Number 2, I just want to say I've looked at a lot of different scenarios with clients and people, and it often goes back to, like, at the end of the day, as far as how can we save money to pay off the whether it's a credit card amount or save up money to buy something, it goes back to, what are my needs? What are the expenses that are needs, that are must-haves? And what are the expenses that are really kind of, you know what, I like to have it, but I don't really need that. And that's where we can save money. And sometimes, like Freddie said, that's where it takes a financial coach to be able to sit down with you to help you really, assess, do you really need this? And how do we do that? How do we prioritize? Going back to the other question that Marco said, it does go to trade-offs. And you have to ask yourself, and sometimes the financial coach will ask you, is the Netflix subscription, or is the restaurant every day or every week, not making lunch, is that more important than what you say your goal is, to be able to have financial independence and not have credit card debt? Is it to be able to make this money last through retirement? Is it more important than whatever your goal is, to buy that house? And that's the real situation here in financial planning, and that conversation that we need to have. That's how we prioritize. Is this thing that we're doing in the short term, is it really that more important than what you really want to accomplish in the long term for your health, to have less stress? And when you start asking those 2 questions and comparing them based on your goals and values, that's when you're really starting to figure out, okay, you know what? You're right. I can't cut this, maybe this amount I spend on doing my hair, or maybe I could cut this amount I spend. Obviously, we got to get haircuts, or we got to take our hair. But it comes to, like, what is the need? Like, what's the need amount that we can spend? And what is the discretionary? And that goes to the subscription, that goes to the restaurants. Is it really worth it to me to go to a restaurant every day for lunch when I can just make it at home, or make it for the week? And that's where the advisor starts giving you the resources and starts giving these shortcuts that we've learned. Like, well, you know what? You don't have to make your food every day. Have you thought about making it on a weekend and then freezing whatever, that you don't need, and using the leftovers? Like, there's a lot of different strategies that we can do, and we can really bring it down to basics that can really help you make things more efficient. But I hope that kind of helps.
Again, no judgment involved, but simply running numbers and showing that comparison sometimes is an eye-opener for folks.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that, you just don't know until you're in it, right? Or you start doing it. Like, I mean, unfortunately, credit card, just even having a credit card, it can be so dangerous because it's so easy to use, right? And it makes you feel like you can buy something, but it's very easy to swipe, right? Very easy to swipe and pay for it. But what happens? At the end of the month, you're going to get that bill. And if you don't pay for that item or pay off your credit card bill entirely, those credit cards have a very high interest rate. I mean, well over 20%. People don't realize. And there's little disclaimer at the bottom, or little calculation at the bottom of your credit card statement. If you've never seen it, look at the bottom that says, they give you, if you have a $1,000 bill, but they say make the minimum payment of $75. Well, if you make that minimum payment for $75, it's going to take like 10 years to pay off that $1,000. I mean, when you look at that, it's really, really scary. But that's the world we live in. We just got to be mindful of the landmines, that are presented to us, and they make it sound so easy. There was a time, when I was, starting out, when I didn't know what I know now. I mean, I'm just like a regular person, like everyone. I had student loan debt, I had car debt, I had credit card debt. There's various strategies that you can employ to get rid of that over time by increasing your income, lowering your expenses, and making effective use of that excess that you might have in your budget. And then it's little by little, attacking it, making a plan, staying on track, knowing from the beginning kind of what that timeline looks like. Are we looking at 6 months? Are we looking at 2 years? Are we looking at longer? What does that look like to know what the likelihood or if you follow this plan, when are you going to get there that you have stability? Because, I kind of like, for me, I kind of like knowing, what that reasonable expectation is. So that's a goal to strive for, and then to accomplish it. I remember when the last time I wrote that I submitted my final payment for my student loans. I was like one of the happiest days of my life, because we were paying a lot towards student loan. I mean, I have a couple of graduate degrees, and so the student loan. Then there's that discussion with your financial coach and your advisor is that there's debts are better than other debts, right? And so what those are and how you want to approach different types. Not all debt is bad, but you have to have a plan for why you're taking it on and how to pay it off. So I don't really know where I was going with that, but those are just things that just rattled through my head of people just don't know these things until you're faced with these issues. And I remember, here's another example. I remember the first time I bought a car. I mean, I bought 3 cars in my life, right? The first time I bought one, I didn't do it really well because I didn't know what I was doing. I went in there and I walked out with a car, but probably wasn't the most best deal for me. The second time I did it, I already knew a little bit. I knew kind of like the process. I kind of knew the best way to approach it. By that time, I had a better financial situation, so I had a little bit more leverage on my side than just walking in there wanting a car. The third time I did it, man, I was an expert. I felt like I was an expert. I knew what I was going to talk to this guy about, and I knew what I was going to be looking for and what they were going to try to sell me that I didn't need or want. And I felt like I was leading the negotiation in that room on that third time. But it took 3 times, to get there. And so the first time you're going to encounter something, you really don't know what to expect. Second time, you're going to get better. Third time. So it's about us repeating the process and educating. Let us give you stories from the other clients that we work with. Let us tell you, hey, I've seen this before. How did that turn out for that person? Do you want that? Or does that sound good to you? So let us use our expertise from our other clients to you so that you don't have to make the same mistakes.
Love that, relying on the expertise and the education that you can provide. Yeah, and just want to say that we're all humans. We've all been there. I mean, it shouldn't be a judgmental environment. You should feel. I mean, the key word here is empathy. So we can definitely be in your shoes. And kind of what Freddie was saying, the whole hair thing. Like, for example, I use that one. Like, that was a story that I had with another client where we started realizing, well, yeah, it's a priority. However, there is something that we can be able to change and reduce down. And so that subscriptions is a common challenge that a lot of people have. So just using the expertise that we have from different clients and from research, and also just, we're not here to judge you. We're not here to say that, this is right or wrong, per se. It's more so about just helping you see, your priorities and what your goals are, and figuring out, okay, let's figure out, efficient ways that we can get you there. But we've been in your shoes, and we understand what you're going through. You're not alone. You're not the only person that has this wall of worry of things that you need to tackle or made mistakes. When it's perfect, don't be afraid to start, making things get better.
Yeah, honestly, my approach has been, when I work with the clients at the FOCs, is it's like I'm helping my sibling, my brother, my sisters, a family member, or my neighbor. It's the same. It's just the same. It's the same. There's going to be sometimes more zeros than other zeros, bigger numbers or smaller numbers, but the process is the same. And just, you have to customize it towards the unique situation. Some people have to, they have things that are preventing them from working the, extra hours at work to get overtime. But if I don't know what that is, then my assumption is going to be you can work more to increase your income, but maybe I don't know that you're caring for your parents, or you're providing for them too. Maybe I don't know that that's the case unless they tell me. So being transparent is really, really crucial. If I go through the whole first meeting and I'm missing a piece of stuff, I've had that happen where the client, is embarrassed about something, or they just didn't want to tell me, but it's a key thing to know. Once I find out about it, I'm like, oh man, I really wish I knew that, because that changes my recommendation, or that changes my whole plan for you. So transparency is a must, and answering questions truthfully goes a long way to so that you don't run into any unforeseen roadblocks on the plan.
Okay, so we have about 7 minutes left, so I think maybe time for one more question, but I'm going to try and maybe bring this down to the level of what to expect for either the financial coaches who may be working with clients at the community centers, or potential clients who might be coming through these community centers. So we've talked about how the folks who are coming into this type of relationship, they bring their values, they bring goals, whether they know it or not. They're bringing some set of background with them. They may even bring specific ideas for what they actually want to do. Like we talked about earlier, they want to jump straight to the plan. So they're bringing a lot of stuff. The financial advisor is bringing their expertise. They're bringing some of these strategies. They're bringing stories from past clients that they've had. So they're bringing some stuff. I guess, Freddie and Steve, just kind of final thoughts. Like when this meeting ends, when this first meeting ends, I mean, how much lifting is typically done by the clients? What's expected of them versus expected of the financial planner? Like, is the financial planner, do they do this stuff for them, or is it the clients? How does that work?
I think there's probably work on both sides. I mean, really, in my experience, when I've gone into the FOCs, is I'm taking a bunch of notes, right, on a notepad. And so it's not in the best format that I need as an advisor to be able to work with. And so I'll have to spend some time on my own afterwards, formalizing my notes to put them into a spreadsheet, or to just lay them out better, because I'm listening, I'm taking notes very quickly, so I don't have time to put it in the right kind of order or template that I normally want it in. I have my little, hopefully I'm asking the questions that prepares me for getting my information in the logical order. So from creating a spreadsheet, organizing the information that I learn in that meeting, so that we can take that, so I can provide it to the client as a deliverable, here, did you know that all the information that we discussed in the last meeting, here's everything on one page, or this is what we're looking at, and these are the good things, and these are the bad things, and these are the things that it's telling me, and this is how we can start approaching. So I might do that, and then setting that second meeting. I mean, we got to set that second meeting, or have the agreement to set the second meeting. The advisor is going to be available. I've raised my hand to volunteer, of course, that we set a mutually agreeable time. But we're probably going to need that client to raise their hand and commit to a second meeting, whether it's 2 weeks down, next week, 2 weeks, a month, or whatever that cycle needs to be that's appropriate for that client, to continue the conversation.
And Freddie, you're cut in and out a little bit, but we got the gist of what you were saying for sure. So my perspective, I just wanted to kind of share is that, and Freddie did touch on this before, and I want to kind of go into a little bit more. So as far as the work goes, in my opinion, it's easy. It gets easier after you reach out to the advisor, to the coach or advisor, if you will. But I think the first challenge and the hardest challenge is going to be taking time to realize and think about this and say, okay, this is something serious, and this is something that I'm willing to commit to. Like, I have this stressful situation with this finances or with this goal or with this my current environment, and I need to make a change. And so it's gonna take that realization for you to commit to it. And if you want to start putting a notification on your phone, like an alarm every day or some kind of reminder, say, make sure you set the appointment with the financial coach, or make sure you go see the community center, or make sure you go see a financial center, where this is not something where we're going to say, oh, well, okay, I'll do it when I have time. No, like if you really want to make the change, we have to really commit to it and give ourselves some type of reminder, put it on our wall or our note, anything that's visibly telling us like, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to make sure that I meet with them, every other week or once a month or once a week, whatever it takes, and remind yourself. So that's one, committing to it, the realization. Number two, putting that some type of reminder, that because I know we can get lost, we get busy with work, we get busy with kids, family, the stresses of everyday life, but making sure we remember, like, at the end of the day, I really want to get out of debt, or at the end of the day, I really want to make sure I have enough savings for emergencies, or I want to make sure I have, money left over. So when I stop working and I retire, it's going to be there for me and my kids, et cetera, or my family, et cetera. So that's number two, making sure that you're reminding yourself. And then number three, you can do this before or after, preferably before you meet with a financial coach. But it goes back to, okay, I need to start getting organized. I need to start understanding where everything is. That way you can provide that information to the financial coach. These are my expenses. This is what I'm spending month to month, or every day. This is how much money that's coming in. I got to see where my expenses are and where my income is. And I also got to see, okay, what are my assets? I have my car, I have my house, I have this much in savings, I have this much in investments or checking account, et cetera. Okay, and what do I owe? This is my credit card debt. This is the expenses that I have to pay later that's coming up. Like, getting organized and having everything in front of you visually helps a long way. And so then after that, it's just about creating good habits and talking to the coach to make sure that you are repeatedly, methodically addressing those concerns.
Okay, so since I think we're basically out of time, Ellery, maybe I could turn it back to you to just kind of wrap it up in terms of, if you're a coach within one of the community centers, what do you do as next step? Or if you're a community member and you want to get plugged into the FOCs, maybe you could help us with the next steps in terms of the program.
Certainly. Thank you. Thank you, Marco, for your fabulous moderating. To Freddie and Steve, a huge thank you for participating today. And again, thank you to Jordan and is it Molly for joining us on the CFP side and FFP side. If you have any questions or anything outstanding, I threw my email in the chat and it's on the screen. I'm happy to continue the conversation or would be really interested in any feedback. As far as next steps, if you are not associated or a client of a financial opportunity center, we do have 4 in the Houston area: Volunteers of America, the Alliance, Chinese Community Center, and Wesley Community Center. LISC.org is the place to go to start that connection or connect directly with any of our 4 FOCs. From there, you'll work with a financial coach, and then the financial coach can connect you with us and eventually to a financial advisor, a financial planner. They're all eager to help you help clients on their journey, and very freely giving of their time, which we so much appreciate, of course. So that's the process. This program is hopefully meant to give this opportunity and benefit from the expertise of our planners. For those of you who joined us today, we deeply appreciate your time and attention. And if you're watching the recording, thank you for watching. Back to you, Marco, for any final words.
No, so as financial planners, as the community that is the Financial Planning Association of Houston, those of us who are volunteering on this program, I mean, just to reiterate what both Freddie and Steve said, I think they said it a number of times, but really our goal is to support. It's to support you as the community. It's to support you as the FOCs. our job is to help make clients, help make the people we work with successful in whatever success looks like to them, because everybody has different values, everybody approaches this from a different perspective. But our primary goal is to help make this successful, make you successful. And we believe in it strongly enough that in this case, we're doing this as a pro bono effort because we know it's important. It's important to you on a personal level. It's important to you on a community level. So we want to help support you and support that process. However we can help do that, please let us know. Please engage with the FOCs, or if you're an FOC coach, help to spread the word in terms of where you feel like the need is there and the willingness to work with this process is there. It is a process, but we're happy to help with that. So thank you very much to everybody for joining us, and especially if you live or if you're watching this on recording, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.